Well, this looks kind of fun.
Spiky Bits.
Welcome back, Hobby Maniacs. I'm Rob Bear from SpikyBits.com, and we got Necromunda. So, new terrain is here. This stuff looks great. The Gang Stronghold is a $90 US release. And the second Orlock box, the Arm Masters and Wreckers, is a $42 box release. Now, we actually saw over the weekend, this all came out on Halloween weekend, but we saw over the weekend that there was some female Orlocks teased on Necromunda's Facebook page. So that's interesting to see. Maybe that's going to be a Forge World thing, or I don't think they're going to come out with another plastic thirdsies. I don't know. Because I think the next Necromunda set to come out will be Van Sar, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Either way, plenty more on the horizon, I guess, question mark. So we're going to take a look, unbox and build both of these kits today for Necromunda. You know, this is just really cool. It's just a cool kit. We did the Dark Uprising back in the day, so I thought we would, you know, definitely be worth taking a look at the Gang Stronghold. Now, of course, you can always get your hobbies for less from dicehead.com or Amazon or your local game store, hopefully, if, you know, assuming they get the stuff in. We'll start off with the Orlock Arms Masters and Wreckers box. Now, if I had to guess, sight unseen, I would say that this is a 2-sprue identical release, as we've seen in the past. Same with Blood Bowl. In a lot of cases, it's just 1 sprue just duplicated. And yep, it is 1 sprue duplicated right there. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of different ways in here, and we'll check the instruction book. And it does come with those cool texture bases and these Buster flying stands right here. I hate those things. I definitely prefer magnets. So here's the variants you can make. The 2 Cyber Mastiffs, it looks like. The big guy, Stronghold. So you can have one of these assisted dudes with a power fist and some of the Jews. Where are those guys? So Cyber Mastiffs, Wreckers. So you can have what? 1, 2, 3, 4 different Wreckers, I guess, to add to your gang right there. So Cyber Mastiff wise, 2 different versions here. It looks like they build very similar with some legs and a little spike collar and glue down to the larger base. That's strange. So it's the larger base. Then the Wreckers also have a couple of variants here. So you got this one here, looks like the jetpack. You got the little thrusters that can be actually positioned, which is cool. Leg in a random spot right here. Different arm weapons. Looks like he's got a sheath knife, pulling a knife. So this is one that glues down to the base. And then the Arms Master here has 2 different versions. So both with the same torsos, just like I'm sure this one is here, but we're about to find out, with some different options. So this guy kind of looks like one of those, what was that big thing that carried the little brain in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? That's what this guy reminds me of. I don't know why, but oh my gosh, I will lose it if somebody converts a Kang in here. That would be hilarious. So it looks like there's some sort of servos, power assist sort of thing right here, like in the Matrix. And then you got this big power fist and some sort of spine thing. Oh yeah, there it is. I like when they flip it around and show you the back. And then this is the same build, just 2 different arms, weapon pack, and a head there. So interesting. Okay. And then the last Wrecker here variant you can build, it is it's different legs. Okay, so you can build 2 different ones. Oh, there's choice of heads. So you got choice of heads, so you can pose them a little bit differently, or you can go with choice of weapons. So these weapons go on this guy, or this model, because I think one of those is a lady. And then this one here, choice of weapons again, choice of head. So you can have a little bit of variance, which is kind of cool to see. And you can also mount it on the flying stands, or you can put it on the base. How does it mount? Is that little nub right there? Ooh, I don't know about that. I feel like I would use some magnets of some sort, like maybe put it in a thruster hole here, but that's just precarious at best. But we'll find out. Let's take a look at the sprue real quick. The single sprue ×2, of course. And they definitely crammed a lot in here for sure. You can see some of the weapon blades right there. Where's those servo things? So here's some of the jetpacks, Mastiff head, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle shoulder pad right there, big hammer. So it's really hard to tell what goes with what, and you're definitely going to have to do a little bit of flash removal because a lot of the stuff is on the plane of the sprue itself that, you know, once you get it together, there's no choice right there. This isn't the easier to build configuration. This is the modular, get the most bang for your buck out of a box configuration. But I like it. It's worked so far for all the Necromunda releases, and I think the majority of the Blood Bowl releases. So let's put those together and see how they look. So here's the first guy. I guess he's what, Arms Master. He is on a 32mm base right there, and it went together pretty well. Everything kind of locks in, and it's really cool how it only goes like one way for the most part, but then they give you the different variants. You know, I mean, you could switch those heads if you wanted for this guy and the other guy, but it's I love his little kitten mittens to smash you to bits with, little servo kitten mittens. But I like the composition of this. Like, it's got the little power supply, and you know, that goes in this little bag right here, and that's, I guess, what powers all his legs and everything, so he can just like smash some fools. And then the Cyber Mastiff, like I said, is on the larger 32mm base from the Wreckers, and this is the one with the crazy Cyberpunk 2077 kind of vibe going on right there, and a couple of servo legs in the back, because, you know, he just wants to go back. He just wants to go fast. He just wants to go fast. Very cool. And then I put this one together, the little cyberpunk kind of hair type deal, and it's interesting because this little headband, I guess, is a separate piece, but you can set all the thrusters and everything like that. And then yes, this is where you're supposed to connect this to, but I just think that's such a terrible idea. So much room for fail right there. So I didn't. But then it's made so you can actually just glue this down like that on. So it still looks kind of dynamic, like kind of death from above. But I'm digging it. You know, got the combat blade out, got the you know, unsheath, or the sheath down there empty, ready to jump down and murder bear somebody. I definitely dig it. It's very cool. So, you know, composition wise, you're gonna get this many different models with, you know, being able to kind of mix and match between like those two poses, these two death from above poses, or these two poses right here, or these two cyber dogs, and kind of add them to your gang if you get the book. So that's kind of where we're at. It's neat. It's something different, you know. All these add-on accessory packs are very different, and I kind of dig it. So $42 US for this one. Now let's take a look. Oh, well, here, let's do some comparisons, because I mean, Necromunda stuff isn't that much out of scale with 40K. So here's a Kriegsman. I think it works. And Intercessor. Who do you think would win that fight? Comment now. Barky Bark. And the little Wrecker Juve dude. So kind of gives you an idea of how they all scale up to each other. Definitely very, very Necromunda. I think I'll get some blue tack and tack that guy down so we can take a look at it on some terrain here. And next up is the Gang Stronghold. Now this was $90 US, which is an interesting price point. I mean, some people have, you know, hey, I think that's great for all that stuff, or it's still, you know, too expensive. This was made in China, so they're still getting stuff made in China, you know, designed in UK, made in China, and then there's everything you get inside of it, like all the I guess that's the breakdown. It's not really the sprue kind of breakdown, but it did say something interesting for use in Necromunda and Warhammer 40,000. But there is no Warhammer 40,000 rules, because I already looked. It's just the instruction manual here, and then one of this sprue, which is the gunk tank, and some other accessories to kind of have like a vertical support on the walls, and this particular hatch and the gate. So interesting that they put all of this on one sprue. So it's kind of like almost like an accessory sprue for it, right? And then you've got 4 of the same sprue right here, which is basically floors and what they use to kind of assemble, I guess, like the walls. So it's kind of like its own built-in walls and floors kind of thing, with, you know, some stabilizations and, or, you know, some supports and things for the to make the watchtower. So it's all separately encased, it looks like, in its own thing, and it's you know, it's 4 big chunky sprues. When you consider that the last box, the Dark Imperium, or not Dark Imperium, the Dark Uprising, was I think $240, $250, but you also got 2 like quasi gangs, not complete gangs, in it. And then I think you could get the walls and the floors separately as a $150 box, which isn't available anymore on GW site. It kind of might parallel well with the amount of stuff you get here, like if you were just to take this and multiply it times 2. But we'll take a look at it, you know, once we get it together, and kind of compare and contrast to some of the stuff that's out there. But before we do that, let's take a look at the instructions, because I think this is going to kind of hold the key to a lot of things. So if you want to play with this thing in your games in Necromunda, these are the rules right here. So you can it's just kind of like a scenario. It looks like you just, hey, we're just going to do this thing, and you can loot it, and all, you know, Necromunda is very narrative, you know, with the arbiter, and you know, it's basically got a DM. So it's kind of neat, and it's more fun if you have a bunch of folks to play with it in a campaign level. Like, you can play some one-off games, but they're just not as cool unless you're like really invested in your character, I feel like, and really want to kind of go through it. At least that's how it was for me way back in the day when I used to play Necromunda, but haven't pulled the trigger on playing it right now. Either way. So, getting into the kit itself. Now, these instructions, I can already tell, it's really hard to make out. Like, it isn't the camera. It's the instructions, right? This is kind of wacky. So, it makes it really difficult to kind of see. Although, it does look like they kind of tell you where things go. And for the most part, it seems to line up here. Now, we've seen this mechanic before, these little rails. They have the little open sockets, and you can just kind of put them across the lips of different things, like basically what we saw on the Dark Uprising terrain. This watchtower looks to be very interesting because you got different components here that all kind of seem to go together. Is that a peg? Interesting. That's very Sector Mechanicus-y. That we saw back in the day when all that stuff come out. So gunk tank construction looks pretty straightforward. They're just kind of leveraging all those little, you know, all the different pieces off the different sprues, because you have multiple sprues. And then it goes, okay, so this is where you start making the walls and such, and they tell you times four here, like putting the armored panels on the rail, like we saw that with the Dark Uprising. And nothing too crazy. Now this makes it look like they don't, like, is that a lip? I would imagine it's a lip because you're putting this rail across it, but it's really hard to tell here, again, because the picture's dark, and because they don't really give you, I guess there's some, see right here is they need to flip it and kind of show you, hey, what it's supposed to look like, because you could easily glue that wrong and then these don't go on. And then over here you've got the hat, or the gates that look like you're not going to use glue here, so they'll actually swing open, which is kind of neat. And then some of these pylons kind of combine using this little insert piece right here to make bunkers and corner pieces. I kind of like that. That's very ingenious, using all those different components off the sprues. And some, looks like you have to glue this down to the corner to make these sub assemblies here, and then they start wanting you to piece it together with those support pieces that go on the back. And seeing these little brackets right here, this reminds me of the Dark Uprising stuff. So these will actually attach to the walls, of the corner walls of the Dark Uprising. So you can actually, I know they said you could they came out and said that you could combine these kits, and you could definitely do it on squares, but you can attach these kits too. Like, they don't just like work together kind of next to each other. Like, you can actually form these up and make different configurations of these bunker walls. So that's kind of cool to see. And then up here you got some more ladders, a corner piece. This kind of, they just kind of corner pieced it, kind of phoned it in right there. Instead of having something cool like that, it kind of takes a turn inside. It's an innie instead of an outie, I guess. And then boom, you've got your assembly. Okay, well, I'm sure it's not quite that easy, but what I'm thinking is how I'm going to attack this, and we'll find out in a few seconds after I'm all done and we come back and turn the camera on, is I'm probably going to do this in sections, because it seems like they like these sections right here to kind of match them up. And I know that these lock into each other and also will lock into the Dark Uprising terrain. So it seems like that would be a good idea, to kind of leave in sections so that maybe you could combine them in one-off pieces for a particular maybe game type, or you could combine them with the walls to kind of flatten out and extend this sort of thing on your Necromunda game board. So that's just kind of how I'm going to approach it, trying to make it as modular as possible. And that watchtower looks to be really tall, so storage sometimes can be a little bit of a concern, so we'll see what we can do there. And boom, here it is. So like I said, modular is probably key for this this particular model right here, because you don't know, if you have some of the other terrain, you don't know kind of what it's gonna go with. And you know, everything does kind of separate, like these little ladders, they will pull off and then go right back on. and they got little support brackets, and it's just very neat. Like the gates here, they definitely move and they flippy floppy, and like I said, at the top, well, let's take a look at it. At the top of the walls, from the Dark Uprising, you can actually put these on here. So you could have a swinging door in your Zone Mortalis if you really wanted to. I suppose it would be like, you know, like half a section or whatever. But I didn't glue down any of the hatches and things right here. And this watchtower, and I'm going to switch to a different view here in a second. This watchtower is like 10 inches tall. This whole thing is about 19 inches wide by about 10 inches deep, give or take. So you can actually have a lot of fun with this. It doesn't look like a lot from the top down, but unfortunately that's the only way I can kind of record it live. But I'll come back and show you kind of the sections. But, you know, keep in mind, a lot of this you want to be modular so that maybe there's some other pieces or some future expansion kits that come out that you would want to kind of switch up. And then even this gunk tower you can switch with the top here, like if you wanted to not have the watch, oh, I glued that part down. So if you want to go even taller than 10 inches, you could. You can just put this right here, but this one will also go on the normal wall top section too. So you can actually have this in the middle of your fortress if you really want to, or you can have it freestanding back here. But either way, there's a lot of different components you can do, and just like Sector Mechanicus, the slots do go in like that, and then this attaches also very similar to what we've seen from GW Terrain in the past. Now let's look at a different view real quick. So here's the front view, of course, and you can see that there's, you know, it's a lot easier to kind of tell the scale with with what's going on. I'm trying to move the mouse icon. There we go. Okay, so there's a lot more scale-wise. Like you can tell, oh, hey, maybe a Primaris wouldn't look good on here, but you know, these Necromunda dudes definitely fit in, and Guardsmen onto the rails, you know, for cover and things. And it, you know, it's proportional. Like everything seems to fit right here. Like I said, I didn't add the hatches and the stuff up here because I didn't know if it was modular and you wanted to pop them off or put them on something else, and it's all good. But, you know, the gates flip open and everything looks good. This probably looks better over here, just to kind of give it a little bit more depth on the composition sort of side of things. But you can definitely move it around and do a bunch of different pieces if you leave it modular. Now let me show you a couple of gotchas real quick while I got you here before we double gotchas, before I show you the kind of the modular sections. So this is the one in the back, and they actually have the incorrect number of these kind of blast doors. They say there's more screens in the box than there is, so don't worry about that if you can't find them. Also, it's very hard to actually figure out where to line up the little plates right here, because there is only so much room to put the lip of these rails onto. So you have to make sure you dry fit everything on this, because the instructions aren't going to be a super big help as to where exactly everything goes to assemble it. But you know, this is very similar from the top down. It looks like the walls and walls and floor section from the Dark Uprising box, which kind of makes sense, right? So now it's starting out, oh, okay, it's the same depth, it's the same height. I don't unfortunately have that box set still here because, you know, we didn't really need it, so we sent it to a Patreon. But you kind of get the idea, like that's how all these wall sections go. So if you kind of assemble it like in the sections that it's supposed to be, like they show you in the instruction book, then you can kind of, you know, have all those things, and then you can reconfigure them. Like say you want to do, you know, like add them to the walls and such from, you know, your Necromunda Dark Uprising. You can do that. Like you can even move around the gates and put the gates back here and do all sorts of different things and make any sort of looking wall you want or objective or something like that. So I think this is kind of the best way to assemble it. Now the ladder comes off, and then I just kind of took the top off. This is a little bit different on this end right here because this wall section can separate. So you're gonna have a bunch of different wall sections, I feel like. And then this watchtower actually has to have this middle section in order to work, and then your secondary kind of ladder. But you know, if you get around that, and then you just have this kind of piece right here, which really doesn't do you any good unless you kind of have it on the watchtower. But I guess it is what it is. Maybe you have some extra pieces. There really isn't a lot of extra pieces. I think out of this kit, it was this. So don't count on having a lot of extra pieces out of this kit. But when you combine it with some other stuff, you're definitely going to get a lot of modularity and kind of alternate builds as you start to get going. So I kind of like that. So it's definitely going to work and flow with the Dark Uprising. Or if you just get 2 boxes of this, who knows what you can create at that point. Your only limiting factor is really these pieces right here to kind of hook everything into because at that point, that's the only thing that kind of locks everything in. And there is one of those pieces in here, so you may not want to attach this top of this watchtower here and keep this one separate and maybe magnetize it or something. I don't know if you could, but if you needed an extra top piece or wall or floor section, that would probably be the way to go right there. So once you dry fit everything and really kind of lock in the instructions and kind of start gluing down, I think it'll all flow very nicely for you. So just kind of keep that in mind. It's not a read the instructions and put it together. It's a read the instructions and then look for yourself, because it's a little bit difficult. But other than that, I think it's a great build. It's a really neat looking kit. You know, whether it's worth your hobby dollars, that of course is up to you. But the way everything is right now, if it's something you might be interested in and you can afford it for sure, it might be worth picking up right now, because who knows if it'll be out of print or even just unavailable in general here in the next few weeks, because that seems to be the way everything's going right now. So that is it for this one. Thank you very much for hanging in there with me and listening to my rambling, which we tend to do here. But I really enjoyed this build, and I can't wait to see more of this kind of modular type train sets from Games Workshop going into the future. So remember, you can always get your hobbies for less from dicehead.com, Amazon of course, and hopefully your local game store. But before you go over there looking for this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you can be the very first to like and comment on all our videos.